Alright everybody, today we have a pretty big video discussing about specifically regarding Durin team comps. And how we're going to be going through this is we're going to be having a bit of ranking depending on the character that works well with him on the tier list. Now do know that this tier list are going to be having DPS character and support sub DPS character being ranked, and the whole point is more toward how well that specific character is going to work together with Durin when they are being on the same team. Also, the ranking of that tier is just for that tier, so basically the character that I place at the top of like S tier doesn't mean that's going to be better than the character at the bottom of the tier, because currently most of the information are still in pre-release beta, and it's just going to be a fun discussion of prediction in terms of how well Durin team is going to be. Durin, as well as so many other amazing not cry character, is going to be coming soon, and I know that many of you are trying to get them, so if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out U7buy. If you know me, I always recommend you guys the best deals for your Genshin top-ups, and with a U7buy you can save up to a 25% on all of your top-ups. With a 4.7 rating and over 40,000 positive reviews on Trustpilot, you can be sure U7buy is trustworthy. Here you can see me doing a top-up where I'll be getting 2 Welkins with a great discount. You just basically need your Genshin UID and server, then voila, your order will be processed instantly. Check out my link in the description and type in my code SUPRA to save an additional 5%, which is a great way to save your money, especially when you're topping up a large amount. On the S tier, first off, we have a couple of characters. Currently, we do have Knish and Emily. These two characters are some of the best characters to be working alongside with Durin. Some of the afterward buffs that Durin has been having. Knish and Emily is going to be having a really nice updated team comps whenever he comes, and it's nice to see that more or less Burning Reaction team is making a slight comeback because it's been forgotten for quite a bit of time. Fischl, definitely going to be one of the best characters as well, especially after she's also have the buff working alongside together with Durin to make the Hexen Circle or the magic character team. Chevrus also, if we're going to be looking in a more or less overloaded team, working together with a Durin, Fischl kind of team comps is really powerful. Other supportive character, Rina, Mona, Shilonen, they're also really good on Durin's team. I don't think we have to discuss too much on Rina, still an absolutely amazing character, but Mona definitely would love to be on a Durin's team, especially in terms of a DPS Durin team. Yeah, having Mona here, especially after the Mona buff, it's going to be one of the highest damaging Durin team out there together with Mona. Shilonen, still Shilonen, really good of a character to be using. So with all the buff that Shilonen and Durin together potentially having on that kind of teams, we're going to be touching on more on the team comp specific section later, but Shilonen is still an absolutely amazing character. A tier wise, we do have characters such as Sucrose, Venti. These two characters also have a buff. Sucrose, less light of a buff, but still going to be amazing, especially in terms of EM wise on a Durin team. Venti also, most likely after the buff, he's more or less going to be a DPS character. Alongside with Durin out there, we're definitely going to be having a Venti Durin comps quite a lot. Albedo also in similar situation, especially when he is buff and with the ability to actually unlock Durin's passive of magic character comps. Albedo together with Durin team is also very viable. Other supportive character, you know, like Xingqiu, Yelan, Yansan, all these characters still works really well, even though they're not specifically magic character that unlocks it. But wow, Xingqiu, Yelan, always really nice sub DPS character. Yansan can work in especially either overload comp, but there will still be many other electro character that will be working alongside with Durin as well. You know, for example, Veressa and Cloran, these two characters alongside with having Durin, and especially, you know, maybe potentially having Fischl also on the team comps. We'll touch again on their team comps later on, but they will still be able to benefit off of Durin being here really nicely. Some pyro character, you know, Lee, Bennett, Alakino, right? Clean Alakino, definitely pyro DPS character, works well on the Durin team. Depending on which kind of team you're going to be using them in, Klee is definitely going to be really nice alongside with Durin, especially after the buff. He's going to be able to deal a lot more damage. Alakino can work well, should be able to make a use of all the supportive capability that Durin has, and Bennett is still Bennett. Why not? have Bennett on the same team and have even greater of a buff together with these two pyro characters. They are going to be doing really nicely. For B tier, they still works decently well with Durin, though not going to be having the best synergy compared to A and S tier. And those characters, you know, like Novelet, Mulani, especially when you're going to be having these two characters as the hyper carry on your team. I mean, Durin is still going to be Durin in supportive playstyle. They will be able to make use of Durin himself, but unfortunately, he himself doesn't, you know, have any kind of buff directly to enhance hydro and cryo damage itself. So it's kind of sad, but I understand because we've recently already have, you know, like Sitlali, who works really well on these character team. So it makes sense that Durin's going to be mostly focused on other elemental type. Other character, you know, like Navia, I think Navia is going to be able to still make use of Durin team very well, especially when you're going to be able to have Albedo as well. But the thing is, with Navia, you already have so many good teams of her, especially when you're running alongside with, you know, Shilonen. So it's more of a trade-off whenever we are expecting her to be used in a Durin team. But again, it's still going to be a lot of testing because Durin is not officially arrived yet. But there will be a nice team comp for Durin and Navia to work together. Raiden Shogun, Yai Miko, well, they're here because we already have, you know, Varesa and Claran, who's basically better as a DPS character compared to this two. If you want to, they can still basically work depending on what team comps you're going to be building them in. Hu Tao, Lily pretty much in the same situation as we do have a couple of other pyro DPS characters to be using. Now, Kazuha is an interesting situation because it's not like Kazuha is bad. Usually Kazuha is still really good of a supportive character, but the thing is that Durin's the character that wants you to be using magic character on his team, and technically we already have Sucrose. So usually it's not like you're going to be using both Sucrose and Kazuha to be on the same team alongside with Durin, because that's just going to be weird, right? So most of the time it's already going to be Sucrose whenever you need an Anemo supportive character. So Kazuha himself specifically isn't entirely going to be having too much of a space whenever we are trying to build around a Durin's team specifically. Other Anemo character, yeah, like Farazan, Wanderer, yeah, I think they still do well, but considering what type of team comps you're going to be building these characters around, they may have less synergy whenever you're trying to work them with Durin. Laoma, Nahida, then kind of like similar situation because their overall value isn't bad entirely, but when it comes to Durin team specifically, most of the time it's going to be on pretty much a burning kind of a team situation. So whenever that is the case, Durin working alongside with Knish and Emily is most likely going to be the case already. But while in many of the situations, if you want to use them on Durin team, they will still be able to work decently well. Flins, Chaska, also a similar situation where they have many other DPS characters, but if you want to, they can still work. It's a little bit tougher to be working on Durin's team specifically, but hey, there's still going to be a couple of teams that he can work if you want to have him on a Durin's team. C tiers are more or less just some other DPS character that have, you know, lower values compared to the ones that we've already discussed. We have characters such as Diluc, Ito, Yoimiya, Xiao, Child, Sino, Dia, Risley, right? All of these characters can work with Durin if you want to, but they have a little bit less of a synergy, and depending on the team comps that you are trying to build, many of the time they already have better team comps that they can work in. Either that, they already have a better version. You're like Diluc, Ito, Yoimiya, all of these characters already have better versions of DPS character. Risley can still work if you want to have him on kind of like a melt comp with Durin being the supportive character. It's okay, but it's not going to be the best value overall. Some other supportive character wise like Lisa, Rosaria, they can still work decently well. However, they are 4-star character that we already have some other better options that you can use in. Rosaria is going to be situational if you are using more of a DPS Durin kind of comps and toward melt kind of gameplay, then I think she's going to be on the high tier. But hey, most of the time you're probably not going to be using her. It's just going to be a situation where we are considering free-to-play options for Durin. And Lisa, yeah, we already have some other better options for us to be using. It sucks that, you know, Lisa herself is not going to be getting any kind of buff regarding the magic character. But hey, I think it's, you know, regarding story-wise, so they're probably going to be sticking to those. And final tier is pretty much, you know, like the 4-star options that's really much free to play. That's why we have like, you know, Razor, Kaya, Barbara, Garming, Sayu, Fremine, those kind of characters. Razor, I mean, he can be on the higher tier because he has the buff, so he can still work on the Durin's team. But again, we still have so many other potential characters that we're probably not going to be considering. Some other options, for example, Xiangling, you guys may be considering, but honestly, I'm going to be putting Xiangling down in this tier because honestly, I would really try to convince you guys not to use Xiangling on Durin's team because she's a really good character that you can technically build 2 teams with Xiangling and Durin being on each of those kind of teams. Xiangling and Durin can be on the same team, but they don't entirely support each other too well, and it's just going to be a bit of a waste of a team comps building, so better off, you know, just use her on other kind of team comps. So those are some of the characters that many of the time we may be thinking whenever we are trying to build around a Durin's team. Now we do have, you know, quite some character remaining, and I'm just going to be quickly going through them and place them on the tier list of where I think they're going to be placed on the tier list whenever they are trying to work alongside with Durin himself. Jean can be around a B tier. I really hope that she gets some kind of buff to go a magic character, but she didn't. But hey, if you want to, you can still use her on Durin's team. Noelle, she can use on a Durin's team depending on what team comp, but most of the time it's free to play. Ningguang, same situation. Beido's more or less going to be on C tier. She can work, but well, depending on what choice of team comps you're building around her, Qing is going to be on a B tier. Zauna, I think she can be a good choice, especially if you have a C6, but hey, not too high of a priority. Zhongli, I think can be on the B tier. A little bit of a wasted team comp potential, but if you kind of want to have Zhongli, he can be slotted in that team and it's still going to be fine. Ganyu specifically, C tier. Melt Ayaka, probably going to be on C tier also. Kokomi, a character I kind of missed earlier. She can be on the B tier, almost on an A tier, but we already have Xingqiu and Yeila, and most of the time Sparrow to be on a Durin's team, so she's going to be a little bit lower compared to these 2 characters. Sarah, a little bit hard to be on Durin's team sometimes, but we already have many other characters to be worth considering, like Yansan, Fischl, depending on the team comps that you're having. Toma, depending on, you know, if you're trying to use a burning kind of team comps where you have Kinish Emily being there and Durin also, so sometimes you're going to be needing kind of like a healer in the last resort, so Toma is not going to be too much of a high priority whenever we're using in a burning team, and more toward the free-to-play kind of side if you are trying to get those kind of burning team out. Goro, again, it's going to be situational because we already have, you know, Albedo. And depending on the team comps, you know, Ito, Navia can still make use of Goro. But hey, we already have so many other supportive characters that worth considering. Yinjin, same situation. Ayato, right, not very much going to be used alongside with Durin many of the time. If you want to, I think it can still be used, but most likely we're not going to be having him there. Hazel, Kale, Nilu, depending on which constellation you're having a Nilu, she can be a supportive character on a Durin DPS kind of team, but hey, we already have other options. But yeah, sometimes we can still consider her to be on the Durin team. Layla, Yao Yao, Baju, Lynette, Xianjun, depending on which kind of plunging team you're probably gonna have alongside with Durin, she can still be used, and especially with Veressa, most likely she's gonna be in an overload team that she probably not gonna be using Xianjun, but hey, sometimes we can still consider Xianjun. Auron's decent, but still more or less a free to play because we already have, you know, like Fischl, who's a lot better. Candice can be a decent consideration if you are having her at a C6 kind of level. If she's pre-C6, you're probably not going to be considering her. So obviously that's going to be on account basis, but she herself still has a slight bit of potential. Chiori, same situation with Goro, depending on which kind of teams, but most likely it's going to be Albedo being alongside with Durin on the team. Vika's in kind of a weird situation. Most likely she's not going to be used alongside with Durin being on her team because she has a very specific team of, you know, Sitlali and Shilonen, but if you want to, she can, but currently I'm probably just gonna put her in C tier. When it comes to how much usage she's gonna be having alongside with Durin. Zilali, depending on the situation, if you're using a DPS Durin, I think she can be on the B tier because of the rest shred that she have access to, but sometimes it's gonna be a little bit competitive towards some other supportive character, especially, you know, the magic character that we already have potentially being on Durin's team. So again, it's going to be on account basis. Inefa, quite situational unless you're using Durin and her alongside with another not cry DPS character. Most likely she's not going to be used on the Durin's team. Never, I don't know how powerful her burning Durin team is going to be, but if you want want to play her that way, I think she can still do it. With Al-Haytham, Nefer, these kind of character in those situations. But it's going to be very, very rare. It's more toward like whether or not you want to play them that way or not. So those are going to be my overall tier list right now. Now again, this tier list can change depending on the official arrival of Durin. But overall, the top 2 tier are the character that many of them most likely going to be using alongside with Durin quite a lot. A little bit more on the B tier, but C and D tier is really much account situational. It's more or less just whether or not you guys like using these character alongside with Durin, because this tier list was a little bit longer than I first started out, because Durin, he is a versatile character. Like Xiangling, Mavuika, right, in terms of supportive role, which is why he can work on so many different team comps out there in the game. The whole point of this tier list was to, look into the character that works, better when it comes to Durin's team building. And currently, what I can see is just going to be slightly, just going to be the B and the above tier that works really, really well with him. So those guys are going to be my thoughts on the current ranking and placing of the synergy of these characters with Durin himself. If you guys have any questions or discussion, leave down in the comment sections, and I or some other lovely Genshin player will get to you there. Now guys, that's going to be the second part of this video, where I will be making quite a lot of potential team comps for Durin himself. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to not miss out on my future Genshin Impact videos. With that guys, I wish you a super day, and I'll catch you on my next video.